Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got winter storm warnings out here for the red shaded area here, Koyukuk Valley, Kobuk Valley, and on up into the Noatak Valley, as well as the northern upper Yukon Valley here, and to the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, right on up to Anatuvik over to Arctic Village in those areas. And that's out until noon Saturday, tomorrow, and looking for, well, let's see, about 4 to 6 additional inches of snow. Some areas may see 9 inches. This in the western portion, a little bit lighter over to the east, looking at 3 to 5 inches with maybe as much as 7 inches total here. So the heaviest will be back here to the west, and then this is a coastal flood advisory there for the northern Seward Peninsula and the northwest coast areas, and that's out until noon Sunday. And then there's a coastal flood warning out here for the St. Lawrence Island area and the Yukon Delta coast, Norton Sound there, south side of the Seward Peninsula, Nome on up into the Bering Strait. And again, that's out until noon Sunday for seas anywhere from 5 to 8 feet above normal for that period. And then there's a windward weather advisory out for the Alaska Range here until noon Saturday, tomorrow again. And could see 4 to 6 inches of snow here at the higher elevations all along the area here. So the Parks Highway, Glen Highways cutting up there. Could get a little slippery. Anyway, moving on to drought index, still kind of high down here over the southern southeast coast, but back here, south central Alaska, really improving quite a bit from what it was. Kind of a lag time there, and that's why it's still showing the yellow, but really making a pretty good recovery there. And moving on to now satellite imagery, you can see the frontal system here pushing eastward into the interior. There we go. The low pressure is moving northward there. Looks like over the northwest part of the state out toward the western Arctic coast, but this just driving eastward here and coming across the Alaska Range like it's not even there. Fair amount of moisture with that, as well as some gusty winds. Wind-wise, let's see, Gamble, winds gusting, peak wind gust 53 miles per hour, and Tin City had a peak wind gust right there, in the Bering, right on the coast of Bering Strait. They had 48 miles an hour. Nome gust to 50 miles an hour, as well as Hooper Bay. And it's those winds, persistent winds, that have got the coastal flood warnings going in those areas for the elevated seas. And rainfall not too shabby either. The 12-hour amounts, 2/3 of an inch falling at Flat, and pretty good rain both in Nikolai and McGrath also. Iliamna picked up 12 hours, 3/4 of an inch of rain with a 24-hour amount of a little over an inch in that area. Well, Sparavon had 0.8 of an inch of precipitation. Up to the north, about 1/3 of an inch, both at Kotzebue and Point Hope. And those are 12-hour amounts, ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And back to the west, dries out pretty much. Lighter, just showery conditions, colder temperatures, snowfall levels falling. Areas today, everyone was above freezing that I saw until you get up about 2,000 feet-ish or so, and then you drop down toward 32. So elevation, you got to get at least some elevation there to mix that rain in with snow. And rolling this through again, you can see pretty good jet here coming across the Bering Sea is what's really driving this system eastward here. And it doesn't look like there'll be too much of a development at all along this frontal boundary here, although it looks like a little bit of an enhancement there. And some clouds coming up, edging northward there down to the south, but otherwise not a bad day here over the southeast coastal areas. You had some showers lingering over the southern panhandle over towards Stewart and Hyder, right in this area here. Otherwise, weak high pressure right off the coast there, and some partly sunny skies. And here's a front pushing eastward late this afternoon, roughly in about this position now, and still coming into Cook Inlet here with rain tapering off. Again, moderate here. It came across northeast Bristol Bay, but begins to taper off considerably, and mostly north of the Aleutians here, and just a narrow band actually past Shimia there, but west of Adak. And then we've got the gusty winds conditions here with that low pressure area pulling slowly northward. 982 millibars on the pressure there. Mixed rain and snow again, depending on your elevation, time of day, and latitude. And for tonight, periods of snow again with the winter storm warnings out in those areas here for the Noatak Valley eastward there, with the heaviest amounts back in the west here, obviously, and gets lighter to the east, especially when this front pushes by. It'll dry out, and a weak wave here forms along the frontal boundary. Scattered rain and snow showers here over the eastern, interior, central, upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country. Rain eastern North Gulf Coast, spreading into the Panhandle. Showers and breezy, but not too strong on the winds here over the southeast Bering Sea, gradually improving as you head west. And then taking a look at tomorrow's forecast, looks like kind of a wet day here, Kodiak Island on up to the North Gulf Coast due to the formation of this wave along the frontal boundary there. Otherwise, the original system into Canada weakens. A trough keeps it rainy, at least in the morning hours for the Panhandle, gradually tapering off to showers, especially down around Prince of Wales Island. You may have a mostly dry afternoon down there. Otherwise, not too bad up into the Copper River Basin and the central interior areas, with scattered snow showers diminishing in the afternoon, especially on the east side here. But look for snow to continue at least through noon, the heavier stuff, and then maybe mixing with rain is below the 2,000-foot level or so, and then a mixture of rain or snow with gusty winds over the Yukon Delta. Not too bad up on the Arctic coast there. Could see some clearing, especially for the north slope, maybe the central and eastern Arctic coast as well. Dry with possible clearing, and high pressure out over the Bering Sea gets shoved eastward on Sunday, with the center setting up over the Alaska Peninsula, ridging north-northwest into the Russian Far East. That ahead of a big storm way out there to the west here, moving northward along the east side of the Kamchatka Peninsula. And an active front, or the trailing edge of that front, drags across the western Aleutians for an increase in the winds, narrow band of rain with that. Otherwise, we'll have lingering snow showers here for the Alaska Range up to Denali Park, diminishing rain or snow showers here for the Kenai Peninsula, with starting to see some clearing there. Northwest winds, Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet, clear skies with that, and clearing out over the Copper River Basin. Southeast coast looks a little on the wet side there. This front, the one that developed tomorrow here, will push eastward and weaken into a trough in the afternoon here. And I'll keep it wet over the southern southeast coast with, again, showers on the outer coastline, rain over toward the border. Looking at the low temperatures down that way for tonight in the lower to mid 40s and near 30 Copper River Basin, possibly falling in the lower 30s here in the Susitna Valley. Around, depending on your elevation here, quite a difference into the central interior. See back into the Brooks Range there, it's down around 20 again, and lower 30s, eastern Arctic coast, and a little above freezing on the west side. Otherwise, lows in the 40s out west. And for the highs tomorrow, mid-20s here for the Brooks Range, 35 to 40 central interior, in the 40s here for south central Alaska, lower 40s Copper River Basin, and 40s there for Bristol Bay. And we're looking at 40s, lower 50s for the Panhandle, followed by lows Sunday morning. Getting a little chillier now, especially up here for Anatuvik and Adigan, down into the mid-teens there. And also, I guess that's Denali Park, low 14, but mid-20s in the Tanana Valley. And just upper teens for the Copper River Basin, the higher valleys there in the clear areas, and mid-40s for the Panhandle, lower to mid-40s for the Alaska Peninsula, followed by highs in the 20s and 30s, interior, and 40s along the coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic for Saturday morning. Marginal VFR, areas of VFR as well, especially here over the Nunivak Island area, and looks like St. Lawrence Island just into the VFR area. Otherwise, some areas of IFR here over the Seward Peninsula up to the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range and the mountains up there along the northwest coast, and a patch of IFR here over the, well, looks like around the Pribilofs, kind of dissipating in toward the Aleutian Range, and marginal VFR. Copper River Basin to the Talkeetnas, and lingering along the Alaska Range here, but looks like VFR, south central Alaska, and marginal for the Panhandle. For the afternoon, area of IFR here, heaviest over the Nulato Hills into Norton Sound, Yukon Delta, northward and northeastward in across the Koyukuk Valley areas. Otherwise, mostly marginal, becoming VFR, probably late in the afternoon here in areas Cook Inlet and the Manassas Valley. IFR areas for the Panhandle, and this area of IFR just north of the Aleutians here until you get out toward Amchitka. Then it's more socked in out there to the Komodorskis. And for the afternoon, IFR holding out over the far western Aleutians, and then marginal VFR in almost to Nikolsky, but not quite there. VFR, pretty good area of it here Sunday morning for the southeast Bering Sea and across the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and up into the eastern interior, VFR, including the Kenai Peninsula. Area IFR here over the central interior, another patch up over the north slope and the eastern Arctic coast and the southeast coast. Looks marginal with areas of IFR mostly up around Lynn Canal, maybe Glacier Bay, and over towards Stewart and Hyder. Then for the afternoon, that holds down there over Stewart and Hyder area with some IFR, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Looks like around Mount Edgecombe or Sitka, right up along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet, VFR. For the afternoon Sunday, a zone of marginal VFR here along the Alaska Range and some of that into the central and eastern upper Tanana Valley, then back into the IFR, or I'm sorry, the VFR along the Yukon River there and the Porcupine River, and then eastern North Slope or the Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coast, kind of IFR-ish, and then marginal VFR here along the west coast, and then a break, and then more IFR, that next system edging in eastward there across the Aleutians toward Adak late in the day. Passes tomorrow in Atuvik, marginal VFR, lowest conditions, probably IFR on the southern approach of both Atka and Atuvik. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, look for marginal VFR. Lowest conditions will be Lake Clark Pass, a little bit better for Merrill, and rainy will be better, but it looks like rainy will go marginal during the afternoon. And for windy, marginal VFR becomes VFR. Isabel, marginal VFR becoming VFR. And in case of windy pass, it'll probably be marginal, very short period in the morning, probably by mid-morning it'll go VFR there. So get back to Isabel, Mentasta, occasionally marginal throughout the day. Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR becoming marginal in the afternoon. And Chilkoot and White, IFR improving to marginal. Freezing levels 2 to 6,000 feet here across southern Alaska and into the Panhandle, and anywhere from 2 to 12,000 feet here across the central southern Bering Sea, 12,000 feet just south of Atka Island. Icing, some possible considerable moderate here from Fognak Island across the Barrens, southern Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, just areas of isolated moderate here up the west side and along the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, Koyukuk Valley, and the Panhandle. And then for the jet stream, cold upper low, be in this position tomorrow and be swinging through with pretty good jet coming across the Bering Sea, 150 and 130 knots, 9,000 feet, 40 to 50 knots here right in southeast Bering Sea across southern Alaska, but diminishing to 30 knots more or less here over the interior, about 40 though across the Panhandle, and 15 to 25 here for the southeast coast of 3,000 feet with 30 to 40 knot winds here along the southwest coast, right into the interior, and turbulence, moderate chop, considerable moderate chop, pretty widespread here from the eastern Brooks Range, really getting widespread over the west central interior out to St. Lawrence Island, the Alaska Peninsula, and the southern Kenai Peninsula, maybe Kodiak Island.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider, and joining me today is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. And Cindy, we hear a lot about tsunamis in the news, probably a lot more than we used to, but let's remind everybody, what is a tsunami?
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Sure.
Tsunami is basically, it's really simple. It's just a disturbance in the water column. So the entire water column from the seafloor to the sea surface is disturbed by something major, usually a major earthquake. But it can also be a volcanic eruption, even an asteroid. Landslide is especially dangerous.
Okay, so if I'm sitting in my bathtub and I drop a bath toy, that could be a bathtub tsunami.
It is absolutely a bathtub tsunami.
Okay, very good. So Alaska is one of the states, or maybe the state, with the greatest amount of coastline, so tsunamis are a pretty major risk here in Alaska. Who is most at risk?
Yeah, Alaska is significant. We actually make most of the Pacific's tsunamis.
Wow, okay.
On the Aleutian Trench, and it's where the Pacific plate is subducting underneath the American plate, and we produce some very large, great quakes, and of course the most at risk is the Aleutian Trench.
Okay.
But that extends into south central Alaska as well. They're at huge risk, and then southeast Alaska's risk is really mostly landslide focused.
Okay. Are there any places along the Alaskan coastline that don't have a tsunami risk, or at least a very, very low risk?
Absolutely. The Bering Sea's risk is very low, and the Arctic's risk is very low as well.
Okay, so when we're talking about tsunami dangers, those are places that need to be monitored, but probably not really.
No, I
a
mean,
big
I
deal.
won't say never.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know
You can't.
better.
Science knows better.
Right. So,
Very good.
near to never.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're on the coast, anywhere in Alaska. What are warning signs that tsunami dangers are threatening you right now?
This is super important because Alaska's greatest risk, especially out on the Aleutians and South Central, is a near-field tsunami, and then of
Okay.
course the landslides in southeast. It's even more intense because we
So
can't.
shorter warning time.
No warning time.
Okay.
The earthquake is the warning.
Okay.
And that is the most important thing for anybody to remember. The water can arrive in less than 2 minutes.
2 minutes, wow.
Yeah, at the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, we need to get the warning out in 5 minutes. So for those near-field tsunamis, it's the earthquake is the warning. So
Okay.
if you feel shaking,
Okay.
and of course the first thing you do is drop, cover, and hold,
Right.
and you need to start counting
Okay.
slowly to 20.
The right way. How do you do that?
Oh, I teach kids to do it with their favorite things. So
Okay.
1 chocolate, 2 chocolate, 3 chocolate, but you
Chocolate's
can
good.
count anything you like.
Okay.
And if you're thinking of something happy, that helps.
Okay.
Especially helps kids, but it'll help your
So you
psyche.
don't speed up because you're getting stressed out. I see.
Right. It actually lowers your heart rate.
Interesting.
You know, so
Okay.
if you think of something you love and practice that. So you're in an earthquake, you're under the table, you're next to the ocean,
Okay.
right?
Right.
This is important if you're next to the ocean.
Okay.
If you're not next to the ocean, don't worry about it. Just stay in place under cover.
And you're talking about a mile, a quarter mile? What's close?
A mile, even a couple miles.
Okay.
You know, our rule of thumb used to be a mile inland was safe, but the last few tsunamis have taught us otherwise.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, in Japan we had inundation up to 10 miles.
Right.
So,
Okay. And that was a big quake.
That was a big
So
quake.
you have a quake, you're counting slowly to 20.
to 20.
What's next?
And if you get to 20 and it's still shaking, you need to evacuate.
Okay.
And that is, that's scary.
Yeah.
Because you're
That's a big quake.
evacuating in a live event that's still shaking. You know, 1964 shook for 4.5 minutes. Indonesia shook for 12 minutes.
Wow. Right.
Japan, I think, shook for 6. I'm not sure of that, but it was long. Anyway, more
Right.
than 20 seconds.
And that's a sign of a very major earthquake, the worst.
Well, 20 seconds is a magnitude 7, so that's
Okay.
not the worst. But what a magnitude 7 can do is trigger a landslide.
Okay.
And those landslides might be a submarine landslide, so you won't see it, you won't hear it, you won't know it, and then the water's moving.
Okay.
So that's really, really, really dangerous. That's what happened in 64 first. Seward, Valdez, Whittier all had landslides first.
Okay. And when you're talking about the water is a warning sign too. What happens with the water that gives you a very easy visual sign that something's changing?
Not guaranteed. It might go out. It might go way out really fast enough to leave the fish behind. But that's not guaranteed. It might just be a fast flood instead.
Okay.
So either way, if it's acting like a super fast rising tide, faster than a tide should rise,
Right.
get out of there.
Okay.
And if it goes out really fast, get out of there.
Yeah.
You know, we lost a lot of lives because people will go check out the new tide pools or
Sure.
pick up fish or shells or, you know, so, and it should feel weird.
Right.
You know, it should be weird.
So pay attention to those natural warning signs and how you feel, because those are maybe the only clues you have.
Right, and you know, sound also. You can hear a tsunami. It'll sound like a roaring train, maybe.
Okay.
Or it might sound silent because the water's been pulled out.
Right.
And that's pretty weird. Imagine camping
Yeah.
at night
Yeah.
near the beach, and all of a sudden you don't hear the ocean anymore.
That would be different.
That would be weird. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you also might hear blowing bubbles, and that's actually from the pressure that's blowing the air out from the sand grains, rock
Interesting.
grains. So if you hear blowing bubbles, that's a little weird.
Okay.
Or clinking rocks, you know, like a rain stick. So those are the sound signs. So the visual is rushing in or rushing out, and roaring especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to get people and keep people aware of what the tsunami warning signs are and what their risks are around Alaska. And there's a website that can help them do that. Where can they go online to get more information for their school, their home, their church, their business?
Oh, there's several. The National Tsunami Warning Center has a website as well, and the easiest way to look that up is just NTWC.
NTWC.
The URL is not intuitive at all.
Okay.
There's also ready.alaska.gov. The state of Alaska has a lot of helpful stuff. Preparedness kits. They have everything you need to get ready.
Okay.
And then for teachers and others, there's a wonderful curriculum called Alaska Tsunami Education Program.
Alaska Tsunami Education Program. Okay.
And that's AKwx.
AKwx. Okay, very good. Those are really good tips to get more information and search that out and help your own community stay safe with the threat of tsunamis around Alaska. Next time we come back and talk to you some more about the Tsunami Ready program and get more in depth on how people can learn more about the risks and what to do here in Alaska. So thank you for joining us today, Cindy. And next time on Alaska Weather Facts, more on tsunamis around Alaska. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, not much different from yesterday that you can really tell on the scale of chart, but gradually is growing here and extending slowly southward here, especially over toward the Beaufort Sea and even a little bit up here. But more than likely, it'll begin to expand out from the coastline long before this gets far enough south to they'll meet up somewhere in the middle. Anyway, coastal water forecast. South coast, southwest, 15 to 20 knots. North coast, small craft advisories, westerlies, 25, seas as high as 10 feet. Gale warnings out for Lynn Canal tomorrow, south 35 knots, seas 7 feet. Gale force gusts there for Stevens Passage. Otherwise, sustained winds 25 knots and Clarence Strait south winds 20 knots. Outlook for Sunday. Stronger there for Clarence Strait, south 30 knots, and small craft advisories all along the coast here, mostly from the west, westerly direction, with seas anywhere from 11 feet on the south coast to 14 feet up north. South winds 40 knots, so a gale warning weekend coming up for Lynn Canal there, and basically the central and side waters as well. Now 35 knots sustained, gusts 50 for Stevens Passage, south 30 with seas 6 feet for Clarence Strait. And then for Prince William Sound, northwest 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast, westerlies 25 to 30 knots, and Barren Island south 30 knots. We got small craft advisories here for Southern Cook Inlet for westerlies at 25 knots, otherwise north of the Forelands south of 15. And then for Sunday, northwest 15, Northern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, a good stiff northwest wind at 30 knots there. Southern Cook Inlet, and then west 40 full gales for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, and minimum gales here for the western North Gulf Coast out of the northwest, seas 13 feet. Northwest 25, Prince William Sound, seas at 6 feet, and northwest at 30 for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Kodiak Island, southwesterlies 25 to 30 knots, and then west 30 knots for Bristol Bay, southwest 30 from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Alaska Peninsula, west 25 in the Pacific side of the peninsula, southwest 30 knots on the Bering Sea side. And then for Sunday, northwest 25 knots here from Cape Saratchev right up across Bristol Bay, and from Cape Saratchev on the south side to Castle Cape north of 20, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and up the east side of Kodiak, northwest 30 knots, seas 7 to 11 feet, and west 30 in Shelikof Strait. Fox Islands tomorrow, Unmak Island coming down to 20 knots in the afternoon with seas 6 to 7 feet. Small craft advisories for Unalaska Islands, west-southwest 25, 15 to 20 knot winds here for the central Aleutians, and variable 15 for the western areas. Then that next system, trailing edge of that pretty strong storm that's far off to the northwest there brings gale force winds out of the southwest into the western Aleutians. Otherwise, central Aleutians, south to southeast 15 to 20. Fox Islands 10 to 15 knots from the south-southeast. Southwest coast tomorrow, west winds 25 to 30 knots, strongest north of Nunivak Island, full gale St. Lawrence Island west at 40, 30 knot westerly St. Matthew Island, only 15 knots for the Pribilofs. And then on Sunday, northwest 25, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, the entire southwest coast, east 15 for the Pribilofs, gale warnings for St. Matthew Island, coming up to 35 in the afternoon. Eastern Boulevard Sea Coast here, extreme east side, small craft advisories west of 25, otherwise 20 knots from the southwest on the east side, 20 knots from the northeast on the central coast, west side, northeast 15, and then Chukchi Sea, southwest 25. Outlook for Sunday, northwest 25 here from Wales to Cape Thompson, all the way up to the central coast north at 20, turns northeast 15 to 20, Eastern Boulevard Sea Coast. For tonight, winter storm warning out for the Kobuk, Koyukuk, northern upper Yukon Valley, into the Noatak Valley, and up to the Brooks Range for heavy snow tonight. Heaviest here in the west, lighter a little bit in the east there until noon Saturday, and coastal flood warnings out until midday Sunday here for the St. Lawrence Island area, Yukon Delta coast, and the Bering Strait coast. Otherwise, we've got a trough swing, some showers and rainy conditions. Snowfall levels will start coming down. And tomorrow we've got wet conditions from the North Gulf Coast in association with this system. And snow continues, heaviest in the west here, begins to slowly diminish, and then Sunday shaping up not too bad over the interior, and wet in the Panhandle, and a big storm way out over the western Bering.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.